All right, I got a good one for us today. I'm really excited for this one today because two of my heroes in the psyop scene, one in the home psyop scene, that's Maddie from Anti-Alienation Project, just does her commentary video on Chase Hughes. And I've been wanting her to find Chase Hughes for a long time. You'll see I've supported Chase Hughes and her with my previous videos with links and all the channels. I really think these two have it down as far as psyops go. And really the thing that stands out of all the interviews of Chase Hughes I've watched is that, you know what, I wrote the book on psyops, hypnotism, and I still get caught. Right? Because this stuff is seriously, I say it's a number one skill in 2026. And when you, Maddie, myself have lived through deception up close inside the home, you don't study manipulation as a theory, you recognize it as a pattern. And this pattern recognition right here could seriously, and if you buckle down and triple down and you become a liar detector. And I love that Henry Rollins track. I'll put links to everything I reference below. The Henry Rollins band song Liar. It's a great piece of music for our anti-narc culture, if you will. And I'll put very interesting links relative to all of this psyop stuff. But I said in 2026, I myself am going to do my morning study sessions on psyops, on mental toughness, right? On mental muscle, on mental training. And I got a great one in the hopper for mental training. And we've got some philosophical debates that are happening out in the podcast world. So we've got a fun next couple of months. Really, this episode right here is going to be a banger, showing multiple layers of psyop science that really matter. Psychology, behavioral analysis, incentives, power structures, emotional leverage. When you stack them together, the picture becomes undeniable. And you can do this. And there is a science here. And you can inventory psyops that you've been running and exist in your life for a time now. And you can go back and inventory them and analyze them against this information. And again, we've got a full spectrum perspective here between the three of us. And this is why people like Maddie and I just don't have opinions. We've been forced through experience, unfortunate subject matter experts, subject matter specialists, to become pattern experts, specialists. And why Chase Hughes breaks down human behavior. Guy's a genius. He wrote the books. He did the work. He was fascinated by this stuff. And another incredible comment that he's made is there is use for everybody, even some of what we would call the psychologically disordered and less empathic, that would conduct a deception on their neighbor, family member, constituent, civil service constituent, right? Even so, as we get into this and watch this breakdown, I'm going to come in with some additional layers and some clinical lookups.
If a government were to isolate a child from their parents, rewrite their memories, and reward compliance while punishing loyalty, and convince them that the people who love them were dangerous, we would clearly call that psychological warfare. But when it happens inside of a family, we call it a custody conflict. Psyops are psychological operations, strategies designed to influence perception, control behavior, and rewrite a person's reality. We usually think of them as tools of war, used by governments and militaries or intelligence agencies. But what if I told you that one of the most effective psychological operations does not happen on a battlefield at all? It happens inside families. What I went through as a child is not just a custody issue at all. It's a sustained psychological operation designed to sever a child's attachment, distort their memories, and turn them against their other parent, while making the psychological warfare invisible to the naked eye. Tonight, I'm going to talk about how the child psychological abuse that I went through for 20 years functions exactly like a psyop, and why recognizing that changes everything. Now, with the Charlie Kirk turning point debacle and all the different things that don't add up, people are starting to refer to it as a psyop. People are starting to question whether it is a psyop. And I was actually doing research earlier today into psyops, psychological operations. I wanted to know more about how these operate. And I came across a very informative video. It's called Every Psyop Will Become Obvious. And I would encourage you to go to this guy's channel and watch the full video. His name is Chase Hughes, but we're going to break it down today. We're going to watch this video, and I'm going to relate it to the child psychological abuse that I went through, for 20 years. However, I'm also going to be thinking about it in terms of the recent political issues, and you can watch the video with me and observe and come to your own conclusions. I want to get right into it because I was shocked as I watched this video. I just kept thinking, oh my God, that is what I lived through. That's what I lived through. That's what I lived through. And so I really wanted to share this video with you guys tonight because it is shocking how similar this obsessive campaign to destroy a parent-child bond is with a psychological operation. And let's not forget that with the family court, custody, different, even criminal law, politics are involved here as well. Here we go. Again, you can watch this in terms of just learning about psyops in general, apply it to a specific situation, or I will offer my point of view. Again, not a therapist, not an expert. I just lived through this abuse for 20 years.
So the first thing you need to know is following the FATE model: focus, authority, tribe, and emotion. This is what triggers the mammalian part of our brain that makes all of our real decisions. The first part is focus. Psyops always aim to hijack your attention with repetition, shocking visuals of fear-inducing scenarios. Some examples are like 24/7 media coverage of a crisis or constant repetition of terms like unprecedented. So with this, pause and ask, why is this message being pushed so aggressively? So compare how.
Okay. So first of all, messages that are repeated again and again and again, 24/7. So when you're a child and your parent is trying to induce fear and anger into you about your other parent, they are going to do this. They're going to induce fear in you again and again and again. They're going to repeat stories to you again and again and again. They're going to use certain terminology repetitively, and that is going to stick into your brain. They're going to cry in front of you obsessively many times. They're going to make you fearful for perhaps your life or their life, your safety or their safety. They're going to get you to be angry at your other parent for causing this hurt in them. And it's going to be so repetitive that maybe the first couple of times they say certain phrases or exploit certain emotions, maybe the first couple of times it won't really get to you. Maybe you'll be able to withstand the pressure and still remain in a contact with the other parent. But after 100 times, 200 times, it will wear you down.
How much airtime different stories are receiving, and note any disproportionate focus. The second part here is authority. Trusted figures might shift their tone or positions unnaturally to support the narrative. So watch very closely for expert panelists or endorsements where authority figures might speak outside of their expertise. Pay close attention to that one. Then we have.
Okay. Obviously, your parent is your natural authority, but they will also bring in other authorities in your life: a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, a therapist, a doctor, to enforce the narrative they're trying to make you believe about your other parent.
Okay, so this is a gross understatement. They will scour the earth and they will find several people that will back their narrative and give their opinion that supports that position, right? It could be a real position. They could just find a person that has a real also, right? They will get other liars that just back their lies because they're liars too, and they know they'll get backing at some point. The best gem, the manipulators are jumping and clicking their heels if they can catch up to somebody that actually knows this person and has something negative to say about them. And they don't care if it's someone who doesn't know the person and is making the whole thing up and has something negative to say about that. The other gross understatement that was just made a couple things back is politics get involved with the family thing, and I'm not going to talk about that personally because Maddie's got it so well covered, but this is an industry where they snuck in a legal system, but you don't get your constitutional legal rights like a jury, like a lawyer appointed if you can't afford one. In fact, it's a racket that's been described in all these documentaries, banglandmovie.com, and it continues to go on and fuel and give carrots for this conflict, and we'll see more about that later here. Oh, I forgot that industry's term is so, even in the temple of health, nature, it's such a hard thing to dissect, right? And remember key elements of knowledge, such as this family industry's working terminology between lawyers is weep 'em and reap 'em, and they'll be high-fiving about going home early and discounting these witnesses, extending the case and extending their paycheck. Oh, I know all about it. See, they know. So they extend child psychological warfare for paychecks. More paychecks. This goes right down the street from you in every direction. Just goes on.
F tribe. So messages that polarize opinions or create stark in groups versus out groups or exploit our tribal instincts. For example, labeling groups as patriots versus traitors or scientific versus deniers. Be very careful when you hear that language. Finally, we have emotion. So be wary of any communication that triggers strong emotions like fear, hope, or outrage without any clear, verifiable evidence. So emotional responses suppress critical thinking.
Okay, that's obviously a huge one. And in the recent Charlie Kirk case, you see it clearly with playing on the fact that Erica Kirk is a recent widow. Now, of course, we all have compassion. Any halfway sane individual has compassion for someone whose husband has just been publicly assassinated. And she has also taken on the head of this organization. And so using somebody's emotion, playing on your sadness in that way to try to get you to not use your critical thinking skills with the alleged TPUSA fraud, for example, that's a great example of how people are going to use your emotional response to suppress your critical thinking. And children especially are very susceptible to this. If it is your parent crying, or your parent fearful, or your parent hopelessly depressed and not wanting to be alive, that's going to override any critical thinking skills that you might possibly be able to access in that moment. For instance, if you have a child who is with their parent who is crying hysterically, who is blaming your other parent for having hurt them so badly, you're not going to access those critical thinking skills of, oh, but dad said this, or, oh, but mom said that. Oh, they seem to love them. That seems contradictory. No, you're just going to be concerned for your parent in the moment. Because if your parent is not stable and safe as a child, you will not be safe either.
Emotional responses suppress critical thinking. So as a tip here, analyze the evidence that's presented to you. If facts are replaced by appeals to emotion, you need to be very, very cautious. As an example of this, think about like a news channel repeatedly showing images of empty grocery shelves and panicked shoppers during a food supply scare. It dominates every broadcast and it pushes people into fear-driven behavior.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name.
So, yeah, that's exactly it. And imagery, too, very important.
Next, question novelty. Our brains are wired to focus on sudden or unusual changes because they signal potential threats or opportunities. And this is an evolutionary survival mechanism. Psyops exploit this by creating events that break normal expectations, like unexpected crises or dramatic revelations. So ask yourself, why is this new?
Okay, so clearly, in the case of this psychological abuse, it is most often the case that you have a marriage where there was never a call to CPS, never a call to the police. There were never any accusations of harm, of neglect, of mistreatment, never once. And then you have the divorce, or you have talk of a divorce, and suddenly there are false allegations made. Suddenly the cops are called. Suddenly the children are told lies, false allegations, horror stories about their other parent. It is completely out of the norm. So far, every aspect of this, of the psyop video, is completely, every aspect is applicable to what these children experience going through this.
Right, and it's not just them. Follow me here for just a moment. Imagine, because extremities can help us identify things, right? That everywhere around you, and this scenario is not going to be applicable to everyone watching this, but it's going to be applicable to many people watching this. But look around and see if you just don't have everyone saying one thing and doing another. Having a friend that's a musician but supporting the celebrity still. Wanting to be a good person but still very small, jealous-minded. Wanting to be thinking of bigger things and having great things to say about all that, but absolutely no action behind it. All right, now stick with me here. Also, let's think of everything there's actually a lever for us to pull. Can we help this situation? Because if we can't, and there's really nothing for us to do here, it's just distracting us from a place that we really have something to do, that we could do very excellently and provide that excellent value. Now, if you don't have levers to pull, psychological health speaking, take that out. Definitely don't let it have any control over your emotions, which shouldn't have control over anything. You should be above your emotions. Nothing going forward should be emotional. These days that we're doing this psyop study, remove your emotions and remove attachment from outcome. Attach while you do things to your highest purpose, your highest mission, your highest help, your highest actually thing you can do, your art, your science.
So consider if the event or somebody's message has been artificially manufactured or timed. Look for patterns like sudden shifts in public opinion, trending hashtags that are unusual, or viral videos that seem very coincidental.
So, they'll know certain things are very probable, such as in Maddie's reference case, you know, they'll know the likelihood of this father that's going to tell her the truth at 18 is very high. So they'll have a masterpiece of continued child abuse ready to go for that timing, right? When you have an independent intelligence that's actually targeting you as an individual, you need to recognize the classification of severity that's higher there.
So for this one, just picture a new viral video just claims to expose a government cover-up, but it conveniently comes out the exact same day that there's some damaging evidence against some high-ranking official. The timing shifts public focus. All of this is part of the NCI system I developed for teaching tradecraft and extreme psychological operations. And there's even a gigantic textbook for all of this stuff in the description. Definitely not for everybody, but it's definitely the most comprehensive guide in the world on this stuff. So next item, look for multiple sources. Centralized narratives create an echo chamber, and they silence dissent and they narrow perspectives. For example, if all media outlets present identical talking points, it is a humongous red flag. So
they're talking about the media and the news in this case. If you apply it to the situation I went through, it would not be the media and the news. It would be everybody else in that child's life. Like I said, it will be the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles, the friends, the teachers, the therapists, the doctors, the coaches even. Everybody in that child's life has been fed the same narrative, and they're all in on it, so to speak, in on it. They're probably fooled as well. They're part of the psychological operation and they don't even know it. But because of that, they're enforcing it to be true to the child. Maybe if multiple people in that child's life were questioning what the child was being made to believe.
So back to this individual level, and I'm going to put Richard Grannon also and other links, the Keel Karlberg link below, that completely outline who does these individual targets of deception. It's sisters, it's kids, it's parents, it's spouses, all right? And at the individual level, if you give this person authority to just make up the gospel and the story and the history with their mouth service, if you allow them to weaponize your most quality features such as your loyalty, your love, your dedication and commitment to what's good, and they exploit that, no doubt about it, you can never trust this person again. If you do, it will be worse.
Maybe then they would be able to access those critical thinking skills. But it's a whole operation. Everybody is involved. And when you're a kid and you're being made to believe some really terrible things that, you know, are hard for you to believe, given that you've had this parent that you've had such a loving relationship with up until that point, having those other authority figures, even preachers or priests, having other authority figures, every other authority figure sometimes, like for me, also believe that narrative and come in suddenly into your life and having this protective role over you, protecting you from that quote unquote bad parent that is suddenly a monster. So it would be one thing, for instance, to question your parent who is making you believe these things, but then add on 10 other authority figures in your life. And you start to think, well, surely it's not just my parent telling me this. It's the teacher, the principal, the doctor, the therapist, the priest, the aunt, the uncle, the grandparent. Everyone is believing this. Surely it's true. And then you don't think twice. And then they have you hook, line, and sinker in your Truman and the Truman Show.
Actively seek out contrarian or independent voices, even if they challenge something that's already in your head. So in reality, an example, during a maybe breaking health crisis, all the major news outlets report on the exact same study, but independent researchers revealed the study was funded by a company selling the solution. So watch for that group speak. Next is...
Okay, other point I wanted to mention that I probably should have said a minute ago. And then you have family members or perhaps even friends. You have people that might be standing in the sidelines, knowing what's happening or suspecting what's happening, and they don't say anything to the child, or they don't bring that contrary information like he mentions. And honestly, I don't blame those people. I don't think they're enabling the abuse or meaning to anyway, but they're afraid to lose all access to the child altogether, and they're afraid to make things worse. But those people do exist. That contrary information and the evidence that will debunk the lies they're being told, it does exist. And having figured out everything after 20 years that I was living in my mom's delusional reality, I have spoken to those family members who suspected and knew what was going on. And all across the board, they have told me that they did not want to tell me anything or question anything to me because they were terrified that my mom would cut me off from them for good. So it's fear. Fear is at the heart of this psychological operation. That's how people are enlisted.
Identify cognitive dissonance weapons. Let's talk about how this works. So cognitive dissonance comes up when new information clashes with our identity or our beliefs. So psyops exploit the hell out of this by including micro agreements. Micro agreements are little, small, seemingly harmless concessions to shape your identity. And over time, you're going to unconsciously align your behavior to reduce that internal conflict.
Oh, guys, this is huge. Huge. Okay, so since I started doing research, realizing what happened to me, I knew, okay, there is a lot of this going on. A lot of this because you live your whole life and you're having such a good relationship with that parent. I mean, I was so close to my dad. I was daddy's little girl. We were thick as thieves. He will tell you that too. Like, we just have so many good memories together from when I was a little kid. And then all of a sudden, 8, 9 years old, he starts to become a monster to me because my mom is hell-bent on destroying our relationship. So clearly, I have all these beliefs and good memories with my dad. And then I have this incoming information and incoming beliefs that are being programmed into me by my mom, and it's conflicting. A whole bunch of cognitive dissonance arises, and that's this extremely uncomfortable feeling, almost like a feeling like you're itching to get out of your skin. And so the child has to suppress parts of themselves, suppress parts of the memory, split off parts of themselves and their memory, and put their love away for their parent who they actually really love in order for that cognitive dissonance, that terrible feeling, to dissipate.
Okay, 2 things. Very important revelation from my case is I actually sent the child abusers, the professionals. And I mean, there's compilation videos of all these professionals, one after the other, outlining all of this damage that she's describing now. And they continued to commit the abuse, which they knew was abuse. And they knew that I was super dad, everybody involved. The threat for bystanders, as Maddie says, is they will not be able to see the kid because these people are ruthless at curating this narrative, right? The threat for us as alienated parents to back off is the system so skewed. We have very little chance and very little ground. And these people do not care. Like I said, I was sending the pros, so they don't care. And they are happily slaughtering that kid's mind to a severe degree right then and there. And you just want to lower that severity. Yeah, we all know. We all know. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible child abuse. And they know exactly how damaging it is. So back to this individual level, and I'm going to put Richard Grannon also and other links, the Keel Carlberg link below that completely outline who does these individual targets of deception. It's sisters, it's kids, it's parents, it's spouses, all right? And at the individual level, if you give this person authority to just make up the gospel and the story and the history with their mouth service, if you allow them to weaponize your most quality features such as your loyalty, your love, your dedication and commitment to what's good, and they exploit that, no doubt about it, you can never trust this person again. If you do, it will be worse.
They have to change themselves or attempt to in order to make 2 and 2 meet to resolve that conflict.
And as a weaponization example of this, a psyop might present you as a part of moral or intelligent enlightenment, like only good citizens do XYZ. If you disagree with that, you risk some identity conflict there. So,
Yeah, we see this playing out with the Charlie Kirk case, and we see this with parental alienation. It becomes a betrayal to go with your bad parent. It becomes a betrayal of your good parent to go with your bad parent. It becomes even take it to the next level, to go with your quote unquote bad parent who has hurt your quote unquote good parent so badly. To go with them, to talk to them, is to betray them. And it is to be making yourself to let me put it this way, to stand up in my head as a kid, to stand up for the truth, for justice, for what's right, and to stand against someone who would harm someone else, to stand against injustice, meant to stay with my mom and protect her and to not go with my dad. That's truly what I was made to believe. That's psychological warfare.
reflect on your identity and ask, am I being nudged to identify with some other group? So be very careful of any campaigns that are asking for seemingly minor commitments there.
So, and another thing is, if you watch my other videos breaking down Dr. Childress's work, he has amplified the idea of a cross-generational coalition. So you have the protective parent, you have the protective parent, and then you have the abusive parent, and then you have the victimized child. So the role that they're making the child take on and identify with is the role of being a victim.
Signing petitions, changing your profile picture that evolves into some bigger compliance or demand later.
Oddly enough, you guys, there are signs too like this for an alienated child. I mean, it might not include a profile picture change, but can we talk about how children who are programmed to reject a loving parent will often call them by their first name, will often call them sperm donor, egg donor, another derogatory term. We can talk about how children who are programmed to reject their loving parent in this psychological operation will very often try to even change their last name. They want nothing to do. They want no outward sign to the world that they are related to that parent. Very unnatural.
An example of this, let's say a company launches an ad campaign and they claim real patriots buy local. If you disagree with their product, it feels like rejecting your identity as a patriot. So this pushes you to conform. Be very, very skeptical about those identity statements. Next is looking for those emotional scripts. And what I mean by this is the scripts that were written in our brains by our ancestors. So manipulated narratives trigger instincts like the fear of loss or scarcity, social rejection, or danger. For example, a media story about food shortages might activate survival scripts that cause panic buying and stuff like that. And we have scarcity fear. This is sudden warnings about limited resources like water or medicine, also sparks that kind of behavior. And then we have tribal rejection.
I want to point out with the tribal rejection fear that when your parents are getting divorced, whether it's been in the talks for a while or whether it's out of the blue, that's going to trigger a tribal rejection of fear of loss in the child. Naturally, because you are losing your family unit as you know it. You're losing your intact family. You're already going to be triggering a lot of anxiety in that child that's there naturally because you're getting divorced. And so to make them fear and hate their parent and cause additional extreme anxiety in that child of their other parent, it's a sick type of child psychological abuse to do to a child. I mean, all of it's sick, but like to exploit that already existing fear, you're deranged. You're just a deranged person.
These are threats of being socially outcast, like you're selfish if you don't comply. And those things override logic every time. And as a tip for this, break the script by focusing on the facts. Like, what's the likelihood of this scenario? So compare the claims with other sources. For this, just picture where a politician says something like, if we don't act now, our children will not have a future. This taps into survival instincts, those ancestor scripts in our head, and it's tied to protecting offspring. It creates urgency without any facts. Next is follow the money. So there's
every single point. I don't know, you guys. Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comments if you think that this is relatable. This is just a video about psyops. This is not a video about parental alienation. This is a video about psychological operations, psychological warfare. And every single point I have seen is applicable to what I went through. This is insane. And I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, I guess. Somehow I'm still surprised 4 years after realizing what I went through, but follow the money there too. So why do folks make false accusations in addition to maybe getting primary custody and ruining someone's reputation? To leverage those accusations and those false allegations and potential protective orders or even a charge, to leverage all of that to get a better settlement out of the divorce, to get more custody, more child support, more alimony. Follow the money. Follow the money. Yes. You guys you wouldn't believe the amount of money that my mom got each month in child support, primarily because my dad did not fight in family court. My dad did not fight her on it because she leveraged the false allegations and the fact that she got a bogus restraining order against him. Look up Silver Bullet divorce, by the way, if you want to know more about that. She didn't have to work for 10 years and she had 5 kids. Yeah. So follow the money. It's applicable to here too. And there's also something with child support in particular where if you withhold your child from the other parent, you actually have to, that if you withhold your child and they don't have them during the parenting time, the parent who misses the parenting time actually has to pay additional child support.
I'm not even gonna go outside. So in my mother's case, she made a fortune off my head from a guy she lied about who was the biological father. I found out when the biological father died who my biological father was, but she got a fortune off my real father. She got a fortune off the government she lied about the existence of the checks when I found out. She never raised me. When I found out she had me incarcerated 10 different places and left me to my own devices the rest of the time I could get away from all of that. From 10 years old on. All right, so that nobody would find out she was doing. She could just get these checks in secret and not have to do anything. She is a whole nother level of selfish parental abuse. And many of these kids were later found to be, it wasn't them, it was their mother. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no bad kids, there's only bad parents. And so, she lied. Then I pulled checks out of the mailboxes to finally get the right amount for like the last 6 months of them before I got to 18 or whatever craziness. My kid's mother came in with consecutive numbered daycare receipts. We knew she was leaving them with this guy. If you go down and get the paperwork right now, all she's doing is filing for more money. The judge was onto it, lowered her money, right? And all I'm doing is filing for my little rights. This is the stuff I was doing. So I paid through 2 kidnappings, just as she said, you know, and yeah. Insane amounts. You should be able to investigate most of these cases and find out the fathers are drug through the same thing. These people have gotten away with anything. The father's sitting there saying, yeah, no, my kid's gone through kidnapping and brainwashing and Elizabeth Smart syndrome. And there's absolutely no investigation to verify this and prosecute these criminal pieces of human garbage who use the system to ruin good men, regardless of the consequences. As I said before, I sent the professional videos to these people, and the whole Jerry Springer, a lot of them, saw those videos, knew that we had a tight relationship, that I was her hero. I said, I am her hero. What are you going to do? Brainwash that out of her? And she liked it. And then she did. And the results are very much in. And it's just as disgusting as Maddie's saying it is. There's more. You can't put words on how the eternal bog of stench is not this disgusting. This is the most insane, and it's horrible because, and I really feel for everyone, it happened to me too, it's the person you are supposed to be able to, who trust, who's behind the whole thing. And you thought they were this victim hero shit. This is an excellent opportunity for anyone who's gone through this at our level to become a genius if you overcome it, to become incredibly strong, to help other people overcome it. I salute Maddie. I salute Chase Hughes for putting this information out for us. And, you know, I salute anyone who sticks with this and realizes that we just cannot afford to miss these psyops and be steered any longer. We need to be free and do our free, righteous, God-given, good roles and passions and arts and expressions in this magical environment. Hua. Also, please like, share, and subscribe. I will put plenty of links in the description. Let's not forget about Aaron Roberts, our good epic brother, who did a morning mastermind with me for 3 years, one of our most active members. He was a beast running ultramarathon, getting ready to run ultramarathons, running 6 miles every other day. I have pictures of his condition. And 1 year of contact denial from his daughter, who he loved immensely. He died and was lost to us. It was September 13th, I believe, this year. Murder by child torture.
Yeah.
There's a trail of beneficiaries here. So identifying who benefits always is going to reveal the motive. So look for funding sources like sponsorships or political connections that are tied to the narrative. So use tools like opensecrets.org or public financial records to see who profits from this. So for policies or campaigns, identify the industries like pharmaceuticals, tech companies, etc., that stand to gain the most.
Divorce industry, family court industry. Look up Title 4D.
So to illustrate this in your mind right now, picture a charity that's promoting clean energy awareness, and they seem noble until an investigation or showing that it's funded by a solar panel corporation that's lobbying for subsidies or something like that. Next, and this one is very important, is analyze the context boundary. The mechanism here is context, and context defines what is permissible. So manipulative people shift contexts to normalize extreme behavior. As an example of this, in emergencies, people accept surveillance or martial law that they normally would completely resist. So ask, what is the context? Compare some similar events in different settings to see if the rules or responses seem disproportionate. Look for contradictions. So for lots
I just want to point out that that's nearly impossible for a child in this situation to do. I know he's not talking about children in a psyop typically, but most of these points are nearly impossible for children in this situation to do.
to the students who are brand new to NCI University, this right here is the most massive realization when they realize that the ability to weaponize cognitive dissonance and then shift the context can get anyone to do almost anything. As a hypothetical example of this, let's say there's a major cyber attack. The governments are now justifying some sweeping surveillance laws to protect the citizens. This changes the context to make previously unacceptable actions seem absolutely necessary. Next, spot the use of archetypes because they're woven into our brains. Psyops simplify narratives by using archetypes like heroes and villains and saviors. Some examples.
Okay, right off the top, you have the hero parent, protective parent who's not protecting them from anything. And then you have the villain who's actually a decently healthy, fit parent, a loving parent in a lot of cases. So right off the bat, and then you have maybe the victimized child. I don't know if that's an archetype, a victim.
Examples are like portraying one leader as the sole solution or demonizing dissenters as the enemy. Deconstruct the story. Ask who are the characters and what roles are they playing. Simplistic, like good versus evil stories usually signal manipulation just about every time. So always seek nuance there. In the real world, you're going to see something like maybe a leader is repeatedly portrayed as a savior fighting something that's pure evil, and the narrative ignores their mistakes and oversimplifies the conflict to prevent a lot of scrutiny.
Good point. So for these kids, they don't see any nuance. They can't identify anything good in their quote unquote villain parent. Similarly, a lot of them can't identify anything bad in their quote unquote hero parent. It's not a nuanced perception of their family, of their parents. It's very black and white.
Next, evaluate the frame. So let's do a step-by-step evaluation here. First one is expectation. What are you expected to believe or do based on this thing that you're exposed to in the media? Next is belief. What assumptions are being made?
Okay, so expectation. What are you made to believe, or what are you made to say and do based on this new belief that your other parent is terrible, doesn't love you, is selfish, crazy, maybe, whatever they've made you believe? Well, you're expected to reject them. You're expected to not go with them. You're expected to be scared of them, maybe be angry at them, maybe outwardly be cruel to them. Pull away from them at the very least.
About you, like your values or your fears. Then we have perception. So how is reality you?
I gotta rewind
through the
it for a
media?
second.
Next is belief. What assumptions are being made about you, like your values or your fears? Then
Okay, so if you guys are new to my channel, I just want to say this for anyone who hasn't heard this already. But the most damaging part of this psychological abuse on a child is the fact that children internalize everything. They know they are half of each parent. When you make a child believe that one of their parents is bad, abusive, neglectful, hateful, selfish, whatever it may be, But
again, in most parental alienation cases, for sure, what is being portrayed on the targeted parent that's supposedly abusive is likely everything that's true about the alienating parent who has gained the full custodian and is vilifying this other person. Most likely everything they're saying about the targeted parent that's been removed is true about them. And most of what they project as their mask of deception to be true about themselves is actually what's true about this person. So they switch it. And this is why it's highly unfortunate that these kids move forward trusting every not trustworthy person, falling in every pitfall, not trusting every trustworthy person, and missing every opportunity. This is why the damage is so insanely high with this abuse. So once again, what's likely happening is they are projecting everything that's true about them. Lies like the wind, super abusive, highly domestically violent, not trustworthy whatsoever, a total narcissist. They're the child abuser, right? I'm the valiant, honest, truth-telling, loving parent who's had a better situation this whole entire time by miles. But you can't know that, or this whole thing just doesn't work. Do you understand?
Altogether bad. Children internalize that, and they come to believe, I'm bad. I'm not good enough. And so what will play out in the life of that child becomes a person who, and maybe it doesn't happen immediately, maybe it happens in adolescence or the teenage years or young adulthood, but it does happen. A bunch of self-destructive effects play out in the life of that child. They have a bunch of self-destructive symptoms that start to occur because they have internalized that negative belief about themselves. I am bad.
We have perception. So how is reality being shaped, like selective facts or missing contexts and definition?
The perception of the reality, the perception of the world is that they are not safe anymore, that things can change in an instant, that I have to earn my love, that I'm unlovable, that I'm not good enough, that I cannot trust people. The perception of their parents and attachments too are totally screwed up. Usually they end up with an anxious attachment style or an ambivalent attachment style or an anxious ambivalent attachment style, disorganized attachment style, I think they call it now. Hardly ever will you see a child go through this, or quite frankly, any type of psychological abuse, and come out with the ability to have a naturally secure attachment style with others in their relationships. That's something that you have to heal and work towards.
Is the final step here when it comes to a frame. What truth is being asserted as something that's completely unchallengeable? This comes up with information suppression. So really look for topics that are being avoided, critics that are being silenced. If somebody needs to be silenced in order for an idea to make it, then the idea is not good. So,
wow, is that not relevant for today's political climate? But also this abuse as well. So much suppression, so much gatekeeping of knowledge, rewriting of events.
So alternative viewpoints being discredited, that's a big one to look out for. So cross-check timelines of events and notice if critics are labeled conspiracists or if algorithms are suppressing some kind of specific search. And this is a big one, especially in today's time. So to get a good example of this, during maybe a corporate scandal, the company's PR team frames these critics as disgruntled employees with a grudge. So this shifts the focus away from the legitimate concerns to the motives of the critics. And it does it almost without us realizing that that's happening in our brain. So next, be alert to rapid compliance shifts. This one is scary and it's happening every day. PSYOPs create urgency to drive rapid compliance. And these tactics are stuff like emotional appeals, staged group behaviors, or false consensus. For this, it's really important to slow down and resist the pressure to act, to question the conformity as much as possible, and test the message, engaging the skeptics there. So in the real world, this might look like maybe a viral social media challenge urges all these users to adopt this brand new symbol or profile picture or hashtag kind of overnight. And it creates a wave of compliance. So later, this is kind of like a foot in the door technique. It's tied to some divisive political agenda. Next, study the timing of the events. And this one's huge, especially right now. Timing is everything. Ask yourself, why is this happening now? So what other
Yeah, it goes back to motive. Why were the cops suddenly called when you had a long marriage where there was never once a call to CPS or the cops or any law enforcement? Was there a threat of divorce? Were papers being filed? Was there a certain end to the marriage on the horizon? Was there a threat to your financial stability? It's just too convenient to have false allegations filed or to be painting your ex as a monster in your child's brain as soon as you're getting divorced from them. If they were truly harmful to that child or to you, you would think that that parent would have documented it, would have called someone, tried to get help at some point along the line.
other events or scandals might this thing be distracting everybody from? So look for very coincidental timing with unrelated major news stories or political movements. Psyops can very often be smoke screens. And in real life, you might see stuff like a huge celebrity breakup floods all of the headlines exactly as some major.
You could even argue that in this case, turning the child against their other parent could also be a smokescreen. It could really be a smokescreen for a lot of things. When you are making the other parent out to be the bad guy who's done X, Y, and Z wrong, they're unforgivable. They've done these unforgivable sins. You must denounce them. It turns the attention onto them, the negative energy onto them, and away from you, from that truly pathological parent who has probably done truly unforgivable things. It's like the look over here so you're not looking around here tactic. It's diverting the attention onto this drama, this, as Dr. Childress calls it, kabuki theater, made up drama situation that's not rooted in reality, so that you don't actually notice how sick and twisted and narcissistic and pathological your parent is who is actually abusing you. It blows my mind. This is psychological warfare on a child. It's psychological warfare on a
Your
child.
investigative report about government corruption is about to be released. Coincidence? Probably not. The next thing I want you to do is to sharpen your brain to start hearing and understanding these manipulation tactics. And one of the biggest things that you can do, the most effective way that I could train you right now, just you and me, is to teach your brain to recognize logical fallacies. So let's go through these, because psyops very often use these flawed arguments to convince people. And if you,
by the way, these are things that I think middle schoolers and high schoolers should be definitely taught, these logical fallacies.
know how to spot them, it makes you a lot harder to manipulate. Let me give you 10 of these so that your brain gets hardwired to start seeing everything a whole lot differently. So the first one that you're going to see all the time, appeal to emotion. So this uses fear and anger and hope to bypass logic. So like, if you don't support this, children are going to suffer. Next is the straw man argument. This misrepresents somebody's argument so they can attack it better. So somebody might say they oppose the lockdowns because they don't care about lives. Think about that one. Number 3 is the bandwagon fallacy. So this claims that something is true because everyone supports it. And this is, you hear this all the time. Millions of people agree with X, Y, and Z. You should agree with it too. Number 4 is the false dilemma. This presents only 2 extreme options and it ignores alternatives. So it's the either you're with us or you're against us fallacy there. Number 5 is the ad hominem attacks. This is the attack of the person and not the argument. Be very observant for this. So
Oh, this happened. All of these logical fallacies happen all the time today, especially in news and media and in families too, particularly the ad hominem attack. I don't know why in today's society, people just cannot comprehend the fact that, number one, disagreement is not an attack. Do you know how boring it would be to live in a society where we all held the same beliefs and thoughts and ideas and opinions? Get me out of there. That sounds boring as heck. I mean, I don't even have all the same beliefs as my husband. It would be so boring. You are allowed to have your opinions, your beliefs, and your own ideas about things. And if someone is claiming that you're attacking them because you differ with their beliefs and their ideas and opinions and values, that's called manipulation, folks.
this is when you hear you can't trust her. She's not a scientist. You can't do X because they're not.
Don't listen to Maddie. She's not an expert. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you how many times people have said that, including experts in this space. Not once have I claimed to be an expert, you guys. Not once have I claimed to be a therapist. Actually, in my videos, I say, in like 99% of my videos, maybe I'll forget here and there, most of my videos, I say, I've been through this as a child. That's why I talk about it. That's why I'm passionate about it. I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. I am not a researcher. I say it all the time. And yet they will use that argument as an ad hominem attack against me. It just happened 2 days ago. It happens all the time. Be aware.
Qualified based on X. Ad hominem is very common, and I want your brain to be able to spot it. Number 6 is appeal to authority. And this is a claim that something is true because an authority figure said so. So like Dr. X supports it, so it's absolutely right. You have to trust the science.
Yeah, so when parents in this situation with child psychological abuse involve the legal system or police or CPS or even the criminal court, that's what they're doing there. They're appealing to authority to further entrench the beliefs in the child. And, another one I should mention is therapists. That's why traditional therapy and reunification therapy often fails for these children, because the therapist, more often than not, will take the alienating parent's version of reality at face value. They'll believe the child's fear is justifiable fear, and their child's anger is justifiable anger, and they will believe the child truly has been harmed. And in that way, the appeal to authority, who is the therapist in that case, also further solidifies those beliefs in the child, enabling the abuse.
Number 7 is the slippery slope. These are claims that one action is going to lead to some extreme negative outcome. So you've heard this before. Somebody says something like, if we allow this, we're going to lose all of our freedoms. All of our freedoms are gone. The country is gone. All of that kind of talk like that. Be very attuned to when you hear that and very cautious when you hear that. Number 8. Hasty generalizations. And these are broad claims that are made with very little evidence. So the example is 2 politicians lied, so all of them must be corrupt. So giant claim, tiny bit of evidence.
Okay. Yeah. A lot of these cases, they might involve something like a delusional parent believing they have truly been hurt. Maybe they have truly been hurt. Maybe their feelings are hurt. Maybe they've been betrayed, etc., etc. That doesn't mean their child has been hurt. That doesn't mean their child has been betrayed. That doesn't mean there's been an unforgivable act against their child that justifies destroying their relationship with their other parent.
2 politicians might have lied, so they're all corrupt. Number 9 is Hughes.
I don't think I finished my thought, but in that pathological parent's mind, oh my gosh, that parent hurt me so bad. They don't deserve me or their child. They make that hasty generalization. They don't deserve anything. Failing to understand that it's not in their child's best interest to have a terrible relationship with either parent.
Huge. It's the red herring. So this distracts people with irrelevant information. You've heard this maybe as an example when somebody says, why are we worrying about climate change when we have so much crime going on right now? It's an argument of distraction. Number 10 is false equivalence. This compares two things as equals when they're absolutely not equal. So you'll hear somebody say something in the news that's both sides have extremists, so they're exactly the same. That's a very damaging one. I know there's a lot of information here, so I want to give you access to the actual tool that we use to identify psyops that even rates the likelihood on a 1 to 100 scale. I'm going to add that into the description.
Okay. So that's a lot of information there, you guys. When I came across that video, I was cleaning my bathroom in preparation to have friends over tonight. And I was like scrubbing the floor because our bathroom was really gross. And I was listening to this video, just honestly trying to understand psychological operations in terms of the Charlie Kirk case. And the more that he spoke, the more I was like, holy shit, this is what happened. This is all part of what my mom did. Like, that was a psychological operation. I lived through a small scale psychological operation. And it's actually crazy that so many children worldwide are currently living through small scale psychological operations and not being protected. And then you think about actual psyops and thinking about how harmful those tactics are in war. Can you imagine how harmful those tactics will be for a child, for a childhood? I mean, we don't justify psychological warfare against civilians, and yet it's happening to our children. And I do like to emphasize the fact that this doesn't just affect a childhood. I wish it just affected a childhood, but it doesn't. It affects a person. It affects a lifetime. If this extends into adulthood and the delusional reality is so entrenched and it extends to adulthood, the chances that that person will ever heal and understand what happened to them and reconnect with their loving parent, the chances are extremely low. Extremely low. So the takeaway, I think, is that there's a key aspect for all psychological operations, psyops, for them to be successful. There's one key aspect. And you might be wondering, oh, what is it? Like I was. It turns out I didn't have to do that much research into psychological operations at all because I lived through one. Maybe that's why I was so drawn to the Charlie Kirk case, to JFK, to all of the other psyops in history. Maybe that's why I'm so drawn to the psychological warfare. But let's get back to the point at hand. That one key aspect that makes a psychological operation effective is that the target does not know that it's happening. The target doesn't know that the psychological operation is happening. The second, the very instant that that target realizes that they are in a psychological operation, it shatters. It's over. It's over. And most children experiencing this child psychological abuse never get the chance to realize what is happening. That's the truth. Because not only by the time they realize what's happening, their relationships have been destroyed, their memories have been altered, and their sense of self and their identity has been demolished, or at the very least altered in some ways irrevocably, you lose time. You might have already lost your loving parent and you can't reconnect. So I know this is a heavier video. I know this is a heavier topic. I mean, we're talking about psychological warfare here, guys, on children. So it's not going to be a light one. But until we can name this for what it is, child psychological abuse, psychological warfare, a psychological operation on a child, then we can start to demand protection and treatment, protection from abuse, protection from their abusive parent. I would just ask that if this video helped you to understand this topic, or it helped you to think about things in the world differently, give you some insight, please like the video and share it. Subscribe to my channel. I don't think awareness is going to be enough to change this whole issue. Definitely not. Children definitely need intervention, and they need to be protected from abuse in order to stop this from damaging a lifetime. Thanks, guys, for being here, and I will talk to you next time.
So I truly want to encourage you guys to check out both Maddie and Chase Hughes' Anti-Alienation Project. And these guys are really on top of things as far as the psyop. And I just really did want to cover psyop just as a mental training. I do connect and include the idea, the bigger picture idea, that we're in a free will, alternates, law of polarity, existence, holodeck training module for our souls, where some guys are using that free will and making a lot of negative side of the spectrum decisions and actions and ideas, executing those, right? And I see that it's those right there specifically, that those of us on the polar good side of the spectrum become valiant, overcoming and doing things a different way, right? So all of that in scope, I do really thank everyone who does great and who does grimy, all right? Because without you, there's really no law of polarity for those of us who are true. Now, just for you true folks, thank you again. And, we can get real tough in the gym, but I would venture to say, and I'm tough in the gym and I'm tough mentally and spiritually in more ways than I ever wanted to be now. I would venture to say that the mental, metaphysical strength is paramount. And if you work on that and you just sharpen that blade, everything else really falls into line. I did an entire video about this, but your intentions are what align you. So use that opportunity to build beautiful intentions and then put action to it, because it takes the combination of those two. The intention by itself does nothing. All right, so make that list as a mental discipline training. I'm gonna do, because all these things make this person who stands for this, right? And then you do them just to make yourself that mental person who gets the mental stuff done. And you'll be the toughest one. How could I possibly forget to say like, subscribe, follow, but more than that, point out the absolute biggest hand in this whole rather esoteric situation, truly, all right? And that is Lord Jesus Christ. In your name, we pray and ask humbly and sincerely for your guidance and your help in dismembering psyops, freeing our minds and spirits, and expressing that freedom loudly. To not be steered, to not be deceived, to beat our own drum rhythm. Sun ray out in this beautiful world. And we ask these things humbly and thankfully in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Let's go.